Why hello there, welcome to reading some more Reddit stories with Mick. For those who have not met me, my name is Jack. You may recognize me as a voice from MK. Well, this is my channel, and today is all about finding out who is the a-hole. If you do enjoy today's content, please like the video to help the channel out, and if you'd like to see more various stories from yours truly, be sure to subscribe as well. So why don't you do yourself a favor and sit back, relax, grab your favorite cup of tea and that Spotify background music playlist, and let's get started with the stories. The name of our first story: Am I the a-hole to ask my friend, single mother, to do a paternity test on her son because I had suspicions my husband is the father? Messy, but I'll make this as short as possible. So, one of my best friends had a kid 3 years ago. She said it was a one-night stand, and later the guy expressed no interest in being a dad, so she raised her son herself. No one has ever seen this guy, not even me. The issue is this: the kid looks extremely like my husband, like to an insane degree. The hair color, eyes, face, everything. He's even been out with my friend and her son, and people have mistaken him to be the dad before. Needless to say, for 3 years now, I've had my suspicions, but I haven't said anything. My husband is also close to my friend, and the timeline works out. We were all living almost in the same neighborhood around the time she got pregnant. Over the past year, it's really eaten at me. I see the resemblance growing more and more. It doesn't help that my friend refuses to show me a picture of her son's biological father, no matter how much I asked. It kept spiraling until I had a meltdown and confronted both of them, saying that I will pack up and leave if I don't see a paternity test. Long story short, my friend got a paternity test but said our friendship is over. The test says my husband isn't the father. I feel so ashamed to lose my friend, but I thought my husband would slightly understand, since even he sees the obvious resemblance between him and this kid. But he has moved out for the time being, and I'm worried this is the end of our marriage. Am I the a-hole for insisting on that test? I honestly felt like I had no other choice. The resemblance was unavoidable, and it was eating at me so much that no amount of therapy could help. I thought my husband would understand my fears, most of all given my history with past cheating exes. Did I frick up, and how badly? From the information, yeah, you did frick up. I'm not sure if you're exactly an a-hole for this though, as it seems you're really just reacting to fear and nerves and really paranoia. So it's hard to really imply that you were being malicious about it enough to come across as calling you an a-hole. But then again, reacting based on fear and paranoia is usually what becomes of making us an a-hole. So I think what really determines the a-hole status here is just how exactly you confronted them about it. The fact you had a meltdown clearly shows that you were really holding this in until the last moment, which was the first problem I think you faced for yourself. Of course, I can't really blame you for not confronting about that as soon as possible. I mean, how exactly do you approach your husband and best friend and say, hey, did you guys happen to accidentally make a baby together while I was dating him? It's definitely a tricky situation to walk around. But if we ignore that and simply just focus on the actions taken, I think your friend's a bit harsh to outright leave you and end your friendship. I mean, it's one thing for you to be constantly nagging her about it, but if you only revealed this fear of yours through one meltdown and burst, surely as your friend, she'd want to understand and care for you. But again, that is also just going off the idea that this is the only one time you brought it up, when you had that meltdown. If you were constantly berating and antagonizing her to show you proof, then yeah, okay, I can understand why she'd want to cut ties with you. As for the husband leaving you, yeah, again, I feel like that's a situation where these people aren't exactly being kind to you either. It's one thing to want a bit of space, but it's another to cut ties from you completely, over accusations that even they agree are plausible based on the circumstances. If anything, the fact that they proved you wrong should make them want to stick around even more, because now they can just guilt trip you every time about it. Hey, remember that time you worried about nothing? Yeah, good times. Anyway, let's see what everyone else had to say. You're the a-hole. I thought my husband would slightly understand, since even he sees the obvious resemblance between him and his kid. Wait, so you thought your supposedly cheating husband would just casually comment on his love child like, oh gee honey, doesn't he look just like me, to his already paranoid wife? Why the frick would he do that if he was actually guilty? Why the frick would either of them indulge you if they actually cheated? I'm not so sure about that. Again, we're coming into the story without any true idea as to the exact personality traits that these two people exhibit. For all we know, they could be great at lying and manipulating others. Or they could be extremely oblivious about it and would explain why they didn't even realize or notice that OP was just about to explode. What a mess. You need professional help, OP. I don't think it will save your marriage or friendship, but hopefully it will save you from yourself. You're the a-hole. He could easily be related to your husband. Maybe your husband's brother or cousin or whatever that doesn't necessarily even look a lot like your husband, but because of how genes work, your son ended up looking like your husband. Who knows? You made her get the test because you needed to know, and now you know. You can't blame them for both being hurt. Also, some people look alike. I am generic white guy number 5. I am told on a weekly basis I look like someone's friend. My son highly resembles my ex-boyfriend's brother, not my son's father. Coloring, features, etc. However, his actual dad also resembles my ex-boyfriend's brother, and it just happens because they are both generic-looking white guys. Did it cause a few whispers? Yes, but everyone involved found it amusing. White people will make terrible jokes or X-race looks the same, but in reality, we look the same. In the wise words of Bobby J. Thompson, "You white, you Ben Affleck!" In response to the first comment we read, I agree with your judgment, but just to be fair, some people are so selfish they go beyond a level of cruelty. We have no evidence that her husband is like that, nor her friend, but even I have been subjected to this level of cruel a-hole insanity. Why the frick would either of them indulge you if they actually cheated? I got a whole Rolodex of Maury shows to answer that one. People absolutely suck. Not gonna lie, I do feel for OP. I can understand how paranoid deep betrayal can make you. However, she should be seeking therapy for that paranoia. The "no amount of therapy could help" comments jumped out at me. Did she get therapy or dismiss it? What did the therapist say? Now, this next comment's a long one, but they make a very interesting point that I think it's worth reading on. It certainly made me reflect on my experiences in previous relationships and how I used to close myself up fairly easily. I missed that part, but I think I can bring insight into that. Therapy doesn't work for everyone. It also doesn't work for everything. The counselors can only give so much guidance and tools, but it's on you to use that in addressing your issues. It's kind of the whole, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Paranoia from deep betrayal of trust is one of the hardest things to get over. At the very core, it has a lot to do with survival. Every betrayal, every lie, every break of trust reinforces those maladaptive behaviors you learn to protect yourself. OP has seemingly fully bought into that deep-seated mistrust of people, and it's poisoning her well. I actually can relate to what she is feeling. My ex has antisocial personality disorder. He was a pathological liar, a serial cheater, an emotional vampire, and often narcissistic. If you thought living with that was a nightmare, and it was, so was leaving him. Even though I left him, by the way, it was the second time I fled that I finally left. Due to his emotional abuse, cheating, and lies, it enraged him, and he attempted to get back at me through my job, through friends, and even through the animals we had. I'm keeping it vague because the specifics are pretty identifying for me. He then stalked me and let it be known that he knew where I lived, and that didn't stop until my now husband was living with me. To also add insult to injury, everyone around me suddenly wanted to clue me in on his actions while we were married after I fully divorced him. Everyone was quiet as a church mouse during the marriage, but afterwards stuff just kept coming out of the woodwork, causing me to relive it and rehash it over and over until I said enough and told everyone to not speak to me about him again. To this day, even though I'm married and happy, I have emotional scars from it. I became controlling and paranoid. Everyone was a liar. No one was to be trusted. It eats you alive. To quasi-quote one of my early counselors, I didn't have a wall around me. I built an entire fortress with a moat and burned the bridge to shut everyone out. I think in the worst of it, I was subconsciously trying to destroy all my relationships. In a twisted way, if you only have yourself, at least you finally are surrounded by the people you can truly trust. Thankfully, I committed to the therapy and have worked very hard to abandon a lot of those paranoid views. I was also able to stop projecting my ex on everyone else, and thank God my husband didn't leave me over it. So there is my 2 cents on that. More like £2. Stay away from sociopaths. It's literally their mission to try and frick up everyone's life. So yeah, that one's a bit of a complicated situation, but what do you guys think? Feel free to comment below if you have any other ideas that could offer insight to this person's issue. Our next rather complicated story is, am I the a-hole for telling my pregnant friend that she is a messed up woman with daddy issues after she accused me of being a gold-digging cougar because I'm dating her husband's son? Alrighty then. So, my friend, we'll call her Pat, started dating this guy, Eric, 3 years ago. He was her boss at her company. Later, we found out that the guy was in fact a married man with 3 kids. He was in his early mid-40s. My friend here was 27. I told her that she was crazy for dating a married guy and that it would end badly. A few months later, we hear that he was getting divorced. Being her childhood friend, I did attend her wedding even though I didn't approve of their relationship. Soon after their wedding, they were fighting all the time because her husband's former father-in-law, who is the founder of the company, was planning to appoint the oldest son as the boss. All the stress involved took a toll on her husband's health, and he ended up having a heart attack. She called me crying at 2 a.m. and we took him to the hospital. In the morning, the oldest son, Sam, showed up and went in to check on his father. And that's how I met my boyfriend. Fast forward a year later, Sam and I are madly in love. I've met his siblings, his mother, grandfather, and basically everyone close to him. I was worried about breaking this news to Patricia and worried about her reaction because she would always complain that Sam was a rich, spoiled brat who manipulates and disrespects his father. He has never acknowledged my friend or said a word to her. She's also 6 months pregnant and of late has made weird comments about my body. I'm very lean and extremely calorie conscious, which has made me feel stuffy about myself. One day she saw me and Sam kissing outside my home and freaked out. She blew up at me really hard, saying that I was betraying her friendship and that I had to break it off with Sam. She said horrible things about him. Things like how he is a womanizer and banged different girls every weekend. She also called me a hypocrite and a desperate gold-digging cougar for dating a younger guy. Note, I'm 24 and he turns 23 next month. It got to a point where I lost my cool and lashed out at her, saying that being a desperate cougar was better than being a messed up woman with severe daddy issues who got with an older married guy for financial security. My other friends are telling me that I'm an a-hole and should have kept my mouth shut because she's hormonal and pregnant. She never had a dad growing up and looked up to my father as a father figure. I know my comments were hurtful, but I was pushed. Am I the a-hole? People usually like to resort to the everyone sucks here decision when it comes to this type of stuff on Am I the A-hole subreddit. But I honestly think, as long as you aren't physically hurting someone, the moment someone hits you with a verbal insult becomes fair game to retaliate with a verbal insult. They made the first serve and you get to return it. Of course, there is being the more mature one and just being silent and letting them brush it off, standing stoic while someone rages at you. But you also have every right to stand up for yourself. And if she's going to accuse you with basic ad hominem attacks, then you're equally allowed to do the same. Being pregnant or having any other kind of thing going on with yourself that makes you have a sort of disability or ailment doesn't immediately excuse you from receiving the same criticism that you try and dish out. All I see here is that you just managed to hit a weak spot harder than she could. Again, yeah, you could have taken the high road and simply said, I'm not going to deal with this, stood firm and said you're staying with Sam regardless if she approves or not, and then brag about it to all your friends on Reddit later on. But it's pretty hard to remain level-headed when your best friend is accusing you in such a demeaning way, and you can't help but point out the hypocrisy that she's displaying. Anyway, that's where I kind of stand with this. Not the a-hole, but obviously you could have handled the situation a bit better in hindsight. The comments are pretty interesting though. Mostly everyone's just pointing out the weird family tree going on. I can't believe you talk to your mother-in-law like that. Bonus points if you put on a long-suffering air and tell your friends that you just don't understand why your future mother-in-law told you off for dating her stepson because of your less than a year age difference when she's nearly 20 years her husband's junior. Now I ain't saying she's a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke. Or that your future step-mother-in-law is calling your boyfriend a womanizer even though he's never cheated on you, but his father did with her. Just really play it up and use the tropes of bad mother-in-law. You, OP, are not the a-hole. Everyone sucks here. You both said very hurtful things. She's more of the a-hole here though. Don't break up with your boyfriend, but break off your friendship. She is more of an a-hole, but you should have told her the truth and not let her find out because she saw y'all kissing. Y'all were best friends and your dad was her father figure. You owed her the truth. Everyone sucks here. Not the a-hole. I personally think the gold-digging cougar was worse than what you said, and she definitely screwed up worse than you did, so karma bit her in the butt twice. You didn't do the right thing, but my dad taught me something that sticks with me. If someone hits you, you hit back twice as hard. I live by that quote. She is pregnant with her boyfriend's half-sibling. Even if they stop being friends, they'll see each other regularly. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Well, not necessarily. If the husband's kids decide not to see him because he cheated on their mother, why would they go out of their way to see his new baby? Especially since at least one of his kids is an adult already, so it's not like they're being raised together. I have half-siblings with an age gap who were raised by their other parent. Their mum cheated on our dad, resulting in divorce. And we super don't give a smack about each other at all. Not the a-hole, but maybe a light everyone sucks here. You could apologize to your friend, but I really want you to consider whether you have a relationship still due to being childhood friends or if you genuinely enjoy one another as people. You can't just blame absolutely everything on being pregnant, even though being pregnant sucks butt. I say you should talk to her, but don't make excuses or go on the defensive. You aren't in the wrong, and you shouldn't let her make you feel like you are. Consider each other's feelings, be kind, and talk calmly. I know you can work it out in the end. The OP said, I don't know. I don't exactly enjoy her company, but my family essentially raised her. We've grown up together. But our relationship suffered because I disapproved of her affair with her now husband. She has always been a bit on the heavier side, not fat by any means, but chunky, and I've always been very skinny. So over the years, she always made weird comments about my body, which only increased after she got pregnant and put on 30 pounds. I don't particularly like spending time with her. I honestly hope there's an update to that story, but unfortunately it really much dies down there, so we're gonna move on. Our next story. Would I be the a-hole to confront someone who kinda stood me up? A couple days ago, I talked to a friend that I have known online for a while about going climbing together since she had said that we should do so several times in the past. Fast forward to the afternoon of the day before, and she says she can't because she burnt her finger charging a light bulb. Seems fishy, but oh well. Fast forward again until this afternoon, after the time we had planned on, and I am looking at Insta. Lo and behold, she has posted a story about finally learning how to rappel at a crag that very afternoon. I am wondering, would I be out of line confronting her about this? I am pretty annoyed she lied to me about being able to climb when I would have had no issues if she had been honest in the first place. Personally, I don't think you would be the a-hole, but I also don't think you should even bother. This girl absolutely disrespected you. Why should you respect her to the point of actually giving her a chance to explain herself to you and giving her some audience like as if she deserves a second chance? I can't really tell if this was meant to be intended as some sort of date, or if you were just friends and you were only intending to be friends and that sort of thing, and maybe she interpreted it as you wanting to go on a date with her and so she bailed because she was afraid it was going to come across that way. There's a lot of variables to consider here. But sticking to the main point, would you be an a-hole to confront her? Not really. Should you confront her? Hell no. Move on with your life. Forget her. She's not respecting you, so don't care about her. Honestly, if she was considerate about you, she would have made sure not to post that onto Insta. At least I'm pretty certain if you guys are able to communicate to each other online like as if you are friends and such, then she'd be aware that you are on her Insta. So yeah, forget about her. Comments time. Not the a-hole, but now that she's proven herself to be a liar, and a pretty bad one at that, why would you waste one more second of your life on her? You'd be wasting your time is what you'd be doing. Not the a-hole. She's doing the activity that you had planned to do together and posting it on Insta? She's the a-hole. That's so rude. Confront her. Yeah, something tells me Sizzling Tofu just wants to see some more drama unfold. Our next story is, Am I the a-hole yelled at a guy for yelling at me about my dog in a car? Title sounds bad. Please read. Well, since you asked so kindly. So, I take my 2-year-old pup with me for car rides as much as I can, as she loves it. I live in the southwest, and the temps here are, well, over 100 degrees. Therefore, I only take her on short errands where it's okay to leave her in the car with the car running, such as running into the pharmacy to pick up a ready prescription, or running into a restaurant to pick up takeout. I always leave the car on with the AC blasting and the doors locked so she is safe and cool, and she's so happy when she gets to go riding with Mummy. Okay, so this happened on Sunday. I needed to run to the market to pick up a money order and then run and drop it off. I pack up my pup and we go. At the market, I give her her toy, turn the AC on blast, turn the music up so people will realize the car is on if they don't hear the engine, and run into the market. I am in and out in under 5 minutes. When I get to my car, a guy is standing there and talking to my dog through the window. As I walk up, he turns to me and starts screaming at me and that I shouldn't leave my dog in the car as it's over 100 degrees and he should call the cops, and if he had any way to break the window, he would have. I respond calmly and told him that, in fact, the car is on and the AC is blasting and she is perfectly fine and happy, and if he had listened, he would have heard the music and the engine. Well, then he starts yelling at me about how that's even worse because someone could have stolen the car with her in it and how dare I be such a horrible dog owner. At this point, I snapped and yelled at him that she was my freaking dog. She was in a crowded parking lot that cops are constantly patrolling. The car was locked, I was in the store for less than 5 minutes, and she had a toy and AC, and it wasn't any of his damn business. He called me a B-word and stormed off, still muttering about calling the cops. When I got home, my partner said I handled it fine, but my friend said I was the a-hole to yell at him because he was just worried about my dog's safety. Was I the a-hole for snapping at him the way I did? So, regarding my previous mention of how if someone verbally dishes you something, you're allowed to equally dish that same thing back, this is a different situation. In the previous story, which was borderline Game of Thrones, the verbal attacks were more so being directed at the person specifically, and just ad hominem and direct in nature. Whereas in this scenario, the man yelling at this woman is yelling about the dog and its safety. He's not exactly saying to this woman anything that's really mean aside from just what he's concerned about, which is whether or not she's being a good owner. Again, while I understand that you can get heated in a moment, and we're not always 100% ready for the nearest argument to pop out of nowhere in life, I still think you snapping at this guy wasn't exactly a necessary thing to do. Now, we don't know what this guy looked like. He could have looked extremely intimidating to this woman. I say this because I know there's probably going to be a lot of comments that we'll read in a moment that are going to say that she is the a-hole for verbally attacking this guy. But you can guarantee the moment they'd see this happening in real life, where a big guy is yelling at a woman with her pet and she's retaliating, they're going to take that woman's side immediately. So in this situation, I'm going to have to say that everyone sucks here. He could have been far more respectful with his concerns, and you could have not done what you did. Let's see what everyone else has to say. Everyone sucks here. It sounds like everyone handled the situation badly. He was concerned for the dog and doesn't know how long it's been in there for. You know your habits, so you don't see the issue. I work in an animal field, and you gotta be careful. People will happily break windows, open doors, etc. when they see a dog in a vehicle. The dog may only be there for a few minutes with aircon on, but people have a knee-jerk reaction to this kind of stuff. I would suggest making a sign saying the aircon is on and you'll be back in 5 minutes. OP responded, "I'll do that in the future. I just figured hearing the music would give some indicator that the car was on. I usually don't lose my temper, but when he didn't back down after I told him the AC was on and she was fine and then turned the argument into she could have been stolen, it was like, dude, pick an argument and stick with it or shut up." See, that I can understand. In some jurisdictions, I think it's true where I'm at, it's still illegal to leave pets alone in the car even if the motor and AC are on. Motor stalls, people get delayed, etc. New electric cars are forcing the law to be reconsidered because they can be off and still have the AC on, which is really the best anyone can do anyway. Everyone sucks here. Don't take your dog out in over 100-degree heat and leave him in the car and expect people to act rational, despite the AC being on. It's 112 in Phoenix today. Nobody needs to be out in that for a joyride, especially not a dog. You're the a-hole. With all the stories of animals and children dying in hot cars, people are very concerned when they see a car with a pet or kid and no parent. My state has laws regarding this. On a side note, years ago, son-in-law left her sleeping baby in her running car with aircon in my driveway. I insisted we go out after a few minutes because I would never do this. Good thing, car had died and just a few minutes produced a very sweaty, upset baby. Don't leave living things in cars without supervision. You're the a-hole. You shouldn't leave a car idling, and it's understandable that someone would be concerned about a dog in a car on a hot day. Leave the dog at home. Not the a-hole, but you can deal with terrible situations without snapping at people. He started yelling because he didn't want to be wrong, but you started yelling because you wanted to be right. If you're never going to see the person ever again, what's the point of getting mad? If you keep a level head and don't get worked up over inconsequential matters, you won't be in situations that merit being posted here. And now for a rather creepy one. Am I the a-hole for not carrying my brother's baby? My mother has 2 older sisters. Each one had 2 kids, and my aunts have multiple grandkids, while my mother only has 1. My aunts tease her relentlessly over this, and that trickles down to me. I constantly hear from my mum that she wants more grandkids. My husband and I are content with our little family, and I don't want to change our lives just so my mum can play catch-up. 5 years ago, my daughter was born, and 10 weeks later, my little brother was diagnosed with cancer. He immediately had surgery to remove tumors. A year later, my brother was stage 4A. He had multiple surgeries, radiation therapy, and weekly chemo. Last August, my brother lost his battle with cancer. His death nearly destroyed my mum. I'll spare you the details, but he didn't go quietly. It was very traumatic for all of us. Life has been pretty slow in returning to a semblance of normal, especially for my mum, who was his caregiver until his death. 2 weeks ago, my mother called me. Before my brother started his first round of chemo, he froze some sperm in the event he recovered. He desperately wanted to have a family of his own, so he did everything he could to ensure that he would have that chance should it arise. The day that my mum called, she received a bill from the cryo facility for the yearly fees and asked me what to do. I never expected my mum to ask my advice, but I asked what she expected to come of having his sperm saved. Did mum anticipate finding a surrogate, have that person carry a child, and raise the kid herself? Because that's the only way I could see a need for her to continue funding the donation. She told me that she'd thought about it, and her plan was this. She wanted me to find an egg donor, get the egg fertilized with my brother's sperm, then have me carry, birth, and raise the kid. I was speechless. I thought she might suggest a surrogate with me raising the kid instead of her. When I asked her if she was serious, she was. So I told her what was the only logical course for me. In no way whatsoever could I do this. Just the thought of it gave me chills. I miss my brother too, but trying to carry on his memory this way was too much for me. Mum didn't like my answer. She told me to discuss it with my husband and let her know our decision. I told her I didn't have to. It wasn't going to happen. Mum freaked out, called me ungrateful, and told me I'm desecrating my brother's memory by not carrying on his wish of having a child of his own. Also, she wanted more grandkids, and this was the perfect way to fix that problem. When I stuck to my firm no, she then screamed that she'd never speak to me again and hung up. I haven't heard a word from my mum since that call. My husband backs me up, saying that even suggesting it was creepy on the 9th degree. So, what do you think? Am I the a-hole? Should I apologize for not giving in? A woman burdened by not having enough offspring compared to her sisters, and a desperate attempt to fulfill her son's dream. I genuinely hope that your mother's sisters don't still tease her about her lack of grandchildren after her son passing away. I think she's clearly in a very, very messed up position where, to have lost so much, the only thing she can rely on is doing what women in her generation were pretty much told all they could do is have kids and a family. I say all this to just reflect on where the mother is coming from and just how desperate she must be to treat you like this as her child. I definitely don't think you're the a-hole in this situation, as the whole situation itself is just so messed up. She wants you to take in your brother's sperm, inseminate yourself with him, to raise his child. Is there not any incest alarm bells ringing for this woman? And so I think the very fact that there aren't is what makes this more of a sad story than anything. The mother is clearly trying desperately to latch on the remains of her son. And so for you to reject this offer and in a way suggest that she should just forget about having a grandson that is like him, yeah, it's made her snap and as a result, not want to speak to you. Honestly, I think what is needed here is just some time and a chance to breathe. If anything, the worst thing you can do is to not be there for her right now. Comments! Not the a-hole. That's really messed up. Your mum can't just decide you'll have a kid because she wants you to. Yeah, kid collecting is not a competition. Your body, your choice. Not the a-hole, OP. Sorry for your loss. Not the a-hole. Sounds like OP's mother is using this as a stopgap to grieving. She's not processing what happened to your brother, but sees this as a way to keep him around. Imagine if OP said yes, and the child was a boy. Mum would likely demand it be named after the brother, be made to act like the brother, be encouraged to study or enjoy the same things as the brother, etc. It's actually a fairly common issue with parents who lose young children. They expect, even unintentionally, the next kid to be the lost one remade, and blame them when it doesn't happen that way. Stand firm, and if I were you, OP, I'd contact the cryo facility to inform them that the donor is deceased. Send them a death certificate. There might be actual laws about the handling of his remains that prevent them from being used by an unauthorized person, such as your mother. They can't just allow anyone to take the materials they're saving without prior permission from the donor. Ugh, and the idea her brother might want that is bonkers. OP's mum has no idea if her brother would think that was great or creepy as I and the OP do. Having kids is so different from having your sister carry and birth a kid related to you. Yes, this is so gross. Even if OP didn't mind surrogacy, and that's a big if because women are people, not incubators, I can totally understand balking at carrying your biological brother's kid. Well, everybody, that does us for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're looking at my face right now, that means you liked the video, so all I ask is that you actually show it by liking the video. It really helps out the channel and lets me know what's working with the content. Plus, if you have any feedback yourself you want to give, be sure to comment below. I like to read them, provided they don't hurt my feelings. And while you're at it, if you did enjoy today's content and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell so you can always be updated on the latest content. I have a lot of fun doing these. It's real fun to talk to you guys and even get your opinions on things and just share my own as well. So yeah, if you guys want to see more of it, subscribe, be sure to check back later. Or hey, even check out some other videos if you haven't already. But with that all said and done, it is time for me to leave. So farewell. It has been nice speaking to you. You're an amazing person. I look forward to you staring at my face amongst the void in the future. Alright, bye-bye.